I collapsed at work and spent 3 days in the hospital. Not one family member showed up. Not my parents, not my siblings, not even a text message. I was completely alone in that sterile room, and that's when I realized something that changed my entire life. What I did next shocked everyone, and honestly, it shocked me too. Let me paint you a picture of what my life looked like before everything fell apart. I'm 34, live in Boulder, Colorado, and I was the person everyone called when they needed something. Emergency babysitting? Call Serena. Need help moving? Serena's got a truck. Car broke down at 2 a.m.? Serena will come get you with jumper cables and a thermos of coffee. I worked as a senior operations manager at a renewable energy startup called Vertiflow Technologies. You know those companies where work-life balance is plastered all over the website while everyone actually works 75-hour weeks? That was us. But I didn't mind. I thrived on being indispensable. I was the one who could untangle supply chain disasters, smooth over angry clients, and somehow make impossible deadlines feel achievable. My apartment was this cozy two-bedroom place in the Highlands neighborhood with exposed brick walls and a view of the Flatirons. I'd bought it 3 years earlier, my first real adult purchase that made me feel like I'd finally made it. The second bedroom was technically my office, but it had become more of a storage unit for family stuff. Photo albums my mom asked me to hold on to, my brother's college textbooks, my sister's wedding decorations that she'd used once and never picked up. My family lived about 2 hours south in Colorado Springs. My parents, Diane and Marcus Thorne, had been married for 36 years and owned a small accounting firm that handled taxes for local businesses. Dad was one of those steady, reliable guys who'd never missed a day of work in his life. Mom was the social butterfly. She knew everyone in town, organized the neighborhood block parties, and somehow managed to volunteer for about 12 different committees while running the business side of their practice. Then there was my younger brother Felix, who was 31 and finishing his dissertation in environmental engineering at Colorado State. Felix was the academic golden child. Full scholarship, research grants, professors who spoke about him like he was going to save the world. He'd always been brilliant, but in that absent-minded professor way where he could explain carbon capture technology for 3 hours, but forgot to eat meals or pay his phone bill. My older sister, Paloma, was 36 and had just opened her own artisanal bakery in downtown Colorado Springs called Bloom and Flour. She made these incredible sourdough breads and pastries that looked like works of art. Her Instagram had like 15,000 followers, and food bloggers from Denver would drive down just to feature her lavender honey croissants. She was creative, ambitious, and had this effortless way of making everything she touched look Pinterest perfect. We had family dinners most Sundays at my parents' house, this sprawling ranch-style place with a huge kitchen where Mom would cook food enough to feed a small army. The group chat was called Thorne Family Chaos, and it never stopped buzzing. Someone was always sharing a meme, asking for advice, or updating everyone on their latest drama. I genuinely thought we were close. Not just family obligation close, but genuinely care about each other close. I was always the responsible one. The one who remembered everyone's birthdays and sent thoughtful gifts, the one who organized our annual family ski trip to Keystone every February, the one who somehow became the family's unofficial crisis manager, emotional support system, and emergency contact all in one. When Paloma needed startup money for her bakery 2 years ago, I co-signed her business loan for $85,000. My credit score was pristine, and I believed in her dream. When Felix couldn't make rent during his final year of grad school because his research stipend got delayed, I sent him $800 a month for 6 months. When my parents' HVAC system died in the middle of winter last year, guess who had the best savings account and the quickest access to $6,000? But it wasn't just money. I was the one they called when they needed someone to dog sit, house sit, or deal with repair contractors. When Mom had her gallbladder surgery, I took a week off work to drive down and help Dad manage everything. When Felix had his mental health crisis during his qualifying exams, I spent hours on the phone with him every night researching therapists and helping him navigate insurance coverage. I planned our family vacations, mediated sibling arguments, and somehow became the repository for everyone's emotional baggage. Paloma would call me crying about her struggling relationship with her boyfriend Marcus. Felix would vent to me about his advisor's impossible demands. Mom would complain to me about Dad's stubborn refusal to go to the doctor for his back pain. Dad would worry to me about Mom taking on too many volunteer commitments. And I absorbed it all willingly. I told myself it meant I was loved, trusted, needed. I felt important when my phone rang with someone's crisis. I felt valuable when I could swoop in and fix things. Looking back now, I can see how desperately I needed to be needed, how I'd built my entire identity around being the family's emotional Swiss Army knife. At work, it was the same pattern. I was the one who stayed late to finish other people's projects, the one who volunteered for the impossible assignments that no one else wanted, the one who covered for colleagues when they were sick, overwhelmed, or just didn't feel like doing their jobs. My boss, David Chen, used to joke that the company would collapse without me. I took it as a compliment.
I rarely said no to anything. Weekend work project? Sure. Cover someone's shift during my vacation? No problem. Take on 3 additional clients when we were already understaffed? I'll make it work. I told myself I was being a team player, that I was building my career, that I was proving my worth. But the truth was, I was slowly drowning. My days started at 5:30 a.m. with emails and ended at 11 p.m. with more emails. I grabbed protein bars for breakfast, ate lunch at my desk while on conference calls, and had dinner delivered to the office more nights than I cared to admit. I hadn't been to my yoga studio in months. I'd canceled on friends so many times that they'd stopped inviting me to things. I was exhausted all the time, but I blamed it on my busy schedule. I had constant headaches, but I chalked it up to stress. I was getting sick every few weeks, little colds that wouldn't go away, sinus infections that lingered for weeks, but I just powered through with over-the-counter medications and sheer willpower. Everyone around me seemed to accept this version of Serena as normal. The reliable one, the strong one, the one who had everything together. My family would comment on how busy I always was, but in that admiring way, like it was impressive rather than concerning. Serena's always so busy with work, Mom would tell her friends. She's so dedicated. What none of them seemed to notice, or maybe they noticed but didn't care, was that I was running on empty, that my apartment had become a place I barely spent time in, that I'd started getting anxiety attacks in grocery stores because making even simple decisions felt overwhelming, that I'd cry in my car after family dinners because spending time with them had become another item on my endless to-do list. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that once I got promoted to director level, I'd have more control over my schedule, that once Paloma's bakery was established, she wouldn't need as much support, that once Felix finished his dissertation, the family dynamics would balance out. I was always waiting for some future moment when everything would magically become manageable. But here's what I didn't realize at the time. There's a difference between being helpful and being useful. There's a difference between being loved and being taken for granted. There's a difference between being strong and being exploited. I thought I was building relationships through service. I thought I was earning love through sacrifice. I thought I was proving my worth through exhaustion. What I was actually doing was teaching everyone around me that my needs didn't matter, that my time was less valuable than theirs, that I would always be available no matter the cost to myself. I was training them to see me as a resource rather than a person, and they were excellent students. The irony is that I felt so needed, so important, so integral to everyone's lives, but I was about to discover just how quickly indispensable can become invisible when you're no longer able to serve. I was about to learn that the people who benefit from your endless giving rarely stick around when you need to receive. That families who love what you do for them aren't necessarily families who love who you are. And I was about to find out what happens when the person everyone depends on finally breaks down. It was a Thursday morning in late September. I remember because we were in crunch mode for the Q3 investor presentation, and I'd been at the office until 2 a.m. the night before trying to reconcile some impossible budget projections that didn't make sense. I'd gotten maybe 3 hours of sleep before my alarm went off at 5:30. I should have called in sick. My body had been sending me warning signals for weeks. Dizzy spells when I stood up too fast, a constant tremor in my hands that I blamed on too much coffee, this weird tunnel vision that would happen during particularly stressful meetings. But calling in sick wasn't really an option when you're the person holding everything together. The morning started like any other disaster. My phone was already buzzing with texts when I woke up. Felix needed me to call his landlord because there was some issue with his security deposit. Paloma was having a meltdown because her head baker had quit without notice and she had a wedding cake order due that weekend. Mom wanted to know if I could drive down that evening to help Dad set up their new smart TV because he was fighting with the remote again. I answered everyone while getting dressed, brushing my teeth, and trying to choke down a protein bar that tasted like cardboard. Just another morning of managing everyone else's emergencies before my actual workday even started.
My heart sank. I was supposed to have dinner with my parents on Friday, the first time I'd seen them in 3 weeks. David, I can't travel this week. My mom's been asking me to come down and... Look, I get it. Family stuff is important, he interrupted. But this is a $2.3 million contract. Your family will understand. And that was the moment I should have said no. I should have stood up for myself, explained that I was already working 75-hour weeks, that I hadn't taken a real day off in months, that I was barely holding it together. Instead, I heard myself saying, okay, let me see what I can rearrange. Because that's what I always did. I rearranged my life to accommodate everyone else's needs. The next few hours were a blur of crisis management. I was rebooking flights, coordinating with the Milwaukee team, trying to prepare presentation materials for a client meeting I knew nothing about, and simultaneously handling 3 other projects that couldn't wait until I got back. Around 11 a.m., I started feeling weird. Not sick exactly, just off, like my body was moving through thick water. I kept losing my train of thought mid-sentence during phone calls. My vision would go fuzzy for a few seconds, then snap back into focus. I grabbed another coffee and pushed through it. I had calls scheduled until 3 p.m., then I needed to pack from Milwaukee, then catch a 7 p.m. flight. There wasn't time to feel weird. By lunch, the tremor in my hands had gotten worse. I dropped my phone twice trying to answer calls. When I stood up to go to the bathroom, the room tilted sideways for a moment and I had to grab my desk to steady myself. My coworker, Jessica, noticed. "Serena, you look really pale. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, just tired," I said automatically. But I wasn't fine. My heart was doing this strange fluttering thing, like a bird trapped in my chest. My skin felt clammy, but I was also somehow overheated. And there was this mounting pressure behind my eyes, like my skull was too small for my brain. At 2:47 p.m., I remember the exact time because I was staring at my computer screen, trying to make sense of a spreadsheet that looked like hieroglyphics. Everything went sideways. I felt this sudden, overwhelming wave of nausea, followed by a sensation like all the blood was draining out of my head. The room started spinning, slowly at first, then faster. I tried to call for help, but my voice came out as a whisper. Then the floor rushed up to meet me. I don't remember hitting the ground. I don't remember the ambulance arriving or the paramedics asking me questions I couldn't answer. What I remember is fragments, fluorescent lights sliding past overhead, the smell of antiseptic, someone cutting off my favorite blazer with scissors, the steady beeping of machines I couldn't see. When I finally came fully conscious, I was in a hospital bed in what I later learned was the emergency department of Boulder Community Health. A nurse with kind eyes and purple scrubs was checking my IV. "Welcome back," she said gently. "I'm Nancy. You're at Boulder Community Hospital. You collapsed at work. Do you remember that?" I tried to sit up, but my body felt like it was made of lead. "What time is it?" "It's about 7 p.m. You've been here for a few hours." "My flight, the Milwaukee project. David was going to kill me." "I need to call my boss," I said, trying to reach for my phone. "I'm supposed to be traveling tonight." Nancy gently pushed my hand back down. "Honey, you're not going anywhere tonight. You're severely dehydrated and exhausted. Your body basically shut down. The doctor wants to keep you for observation." That's when it hit me. Someone must have called my family. Someone must have told them I was in the hospital. I looked around the room expecting to see my mom's worried face or hear my dad's voice in the hallway. The room was empty, except for Nancy and me. "Has anyone called my family?" I asked. "We tried the emergency contacts in your phone. No one answered, but we left messages." Messages. They'd left messages and no one had come. I spent the next hour making excuses for them in my head. Mom was probably at her book club. Dad might be working late during tax season prep. Felix was probably in the library with his phone on silent. Paloma was dealing with her bakery crisis. But as the hours ticked by and my phone stayed silent, those excuses started feeling thinner and thinner. By 10 p.m., I'd been officially admitted for observation. Severe exhaustion, they said, dehydration, dangerously low blood pressure. My body had essentially staged a revolt against the way I'd been treating it. I was moved to a regular room on the 4th floor. It was small and sterile, with pale green walls and a window that looked out onto the parking lot. The night nurse, a guy named Kevin, was efficient but kind. He explained that they wanted to monitor me for at least 24 hours, maybe longer depending on how I responded to rest and IV fluids. That's when the reality really sunk in. I was alone in a hospital room at 10:47 p.m. on a Thursday night, and not a single person in my family knew or cared enough to be there. I'd collapsed at work, I was hospitalized, and I was completely and utterly alone. That silence, that absence of anyone who was supposed to love me, was louder than any alarm.
Friday morning came with the sound of breakfast trays rattling down the hallway and the antiseptic smell that I was already getting used to. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept checking my phone, convinced I'd missed calls or texts from my family. But the screen stayed dark, except for work emails I was too weak to answer. Dr. Sarah Martinez came in around 8 a.m. for rounds. She was probably in her 40s, with graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and the kind of direct but compassionate manner that made you trust her immediately. "How are you feeling this morning, Serena?" she asked, checking my chart on her tablet. "Better," I lied. Physically, maybe that was true. The IV fluids had helped, and I didn't feel like I was going to faint when I sat up, but emotionally, I felt like I was falling through space. "Your vitals have stabilized, which is good news," Dr. Martinez said, "but I want to talk to you about what happened yesterday. This wasn't just a case of being tired. Your body went into a stress response that could have been much more serious. When did you last take a real day off?" I had to think about it. "I took Memorial Day weekend off," I said finally. "That was 4 months ago." "Well, I wasn't working the whole time. I had family dinner last Sunday." Dr. Martinez gave me a look that suggested she'd heard this kind of rationalization before. "Serena, you collapsed from exhaustion. Your blood pressure was dangerously low. Your body was essentially shutting down non-essential functions to conserve energy. This is what happens when we ignore our limits for too long." I nodded like I understood, but honestly, I was only half listening. My mind kept drifting to my phone, wondering why no one had called. Surely someone would check on me by now. It was almost 24 hours since I'd collapsed. "I'm going to recommend another day of observation, and I want you to seriously consider taking some time off work when you're discharged. Real time off. Your body needs to recover." After she left, I finally gave in and called my mom. It went straight to voicemail. "Hi, Mom, it's me. I'm actually in the hospital right now. I collapsed at work yesterday. I'm okay, but I'm going to be here for another day or so. Could you call me back when you get this? Love you." Then I called my dad. Voicemail. "Paloma." Voicemail.
Felix actually picked up, but I could hear loud music and voices in the background. Hey, Serena, what's up? I'm at this conference networking thing. Can I call you back later? I'm in the hospital, I said. What? I can't hear you very well. This place is super loud. I said I'm in the hospital. I collapsed at work. There was a pause. Oh, shit. Really? Are you okay? Like, do you need me to come up there? The fact that he was asking instead of already being on his way told me everything I needed to know. No, it's okay. I just wanted you to know. Okay, cool. I'll try to call you tomorrow, okay? This networking thing is really important for my career. He hung up before I could respond. I sat there staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. My brother knew I was hospitalized, and his response was essentially, "That sucks, but I'm busy." Around noon, my phone finally rang. It was my mom. "Serena, I just got your message. Are you okay? What happened?" For a moment, relief flooded through me. Finally, someone who cared. "I collapsed at work yesterday from exhaustion. I'm at Boulder Community Hospital. They're keeping me for observation." "Oh my goodness, that's terrible. Are you going to be okay?" "Yeah, I think so. I've been working too much, and my body basically gave out." "Well, that's what happens when you don't take care of yourself," she said, and I could hear the subtle blame in her voice. "I've been telling you that you work too hard." "I know," I said quietly. "I was hoping maybe you could come up, or Dad. I'm pretty scared and—" "Oh, honey, I wish I could, but your father and I are driving to Pueblo today for your Aunt Linda's birthday party. We've had this planned for months. And tomorrow we're helping the Hendersons move. You know how it is." I did know how it was. I knew exactly how it was. When I helped other people move, I rearranged my entire schedule. When I was needed for family events, I dropped everything. But when I needed them, they had prior commitments. "Could Paloma maybe come?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. "Oh, you know she's dealing with that bakery crisis. She's been working around the clock trying to fill in for her baker who quit. She's barely keeping her head above water." Right, because Paloma's work crisis was more important than my health crisis. "What about this weekend?" I tried. "When I get discharged?" "Well, we'll see. This weekend's pretty packed, but maybe we can figure something out." After we hung up, I lay there, staring at the ceiling tiles, trying to make sense of what I was feeling. It wasn't just disappointment. It was something deeper and more devastating. It was the slow, horrible realization that the people I'd been prioritizing for years didn't prioritize me back. Friday afternoon dragged by. I watched terrible daytime TV and tried to read a book on my phone, but I couldn't concentrate. My brain kept circling back to the same thought. If the roles were reversed, I would have dropped everything to be there for any of them. When Paloma called around 5 p.m., I actually felt hopeful again. "Serena, Mom told me you're in the hospital. That's so scary." "Yeah, it's been pretty rough," I said. "I'm feeling better now, but I'm so glad you're okay. Listen, I can't talk long because I'm literally covered in flour and have 6 wedding cakes to finish by Sunday, but I wanted to check on you. I was wondering if maybe you could visit tomorrow? I should be getting discharged, but..." "Tomorrow? Oh, God, I wish I could, but it's going to be my longest day ever. I have to be at the bakery at 4 a.m., and I probably won't leave until midnight. This whole thing with Marcus quitting has been a nightmare. You know how it is when you can't depend on people." The irony of that statement hit me like a physical blow. "Yeah," I said. "I know exactly how that feels. But hey, once things calm down here, we should definitely get together. Maybe next month." "Next month? I was in the hospital today, and she was suggesting we get together next month?" Saturday morning came with the same hospital routine, but something inside me had shifted overnight.
It wasn't hope anymore that kept me checking my phone. It was a kind of morbid curiosity. How long would it take for someone in my family to actually prioritize my well-being over their own convenience? Dr. Martinez discharged me Saturday afternoon with strict instructions to rest, take the following week off work, and seriously evaluate the relationships and commitments that led to this situation. That last part stuck with me as I took an Uber home to my empty apartment. Seriously evaluate the relationships and commitments that led to this situation. I spent Saturday night alone in my apartment looking around at all the evidence of how I'd been living. Family photos where I was always the one organizing everyone for the shot. Thank you cards from relatives I'd helped move, get jobs, or navigate crises. A calendar filled with everyone else's needs and emergencies, but nothing that was just for me. And that's when it hit me, the devastating, liberating truth that would change everything. I had spent years building relationships based on what I could give, not who I was. I had trained my family to see me as a resource, not a person. And when that resource was temporarily unavailable, they simply moved on with their lives. I wasn't their daughter, sister, or family member who they loved unconditionally. I was their problem solver, their emergency contact, their financial backup plan. And when I couldn't serve those functions, I became invisible. That realization should have broken me. Instead, it freed me. Because if I was invisible anyway, I could disappear on my own terms.